Hi guys, welcome back to TOEFL with Juva. If you want to take the TOEFL in 2024, now is the time to start preparing. In this video, I will give you my top tips for getting a high score on the TOEFL this year. Let's get started. Let's start with TOEFL Writing. The writing section has two very different tasks, the integrated writing task and the academic discussion task. TOEFL integrated writing requires you to combine information from a passage that you read and a lecture that you listen to. The academic discussion task asks you to write a response in an online discussion for a college class. You need totally different writing skills to complete these two tasks well. In integrated writing, you have to write a formal essay that summarizes and contrasts material from the two sources. By contrast, you can use a relatively casual but polite tone for the chat room conversation. And your response must be in the first person because you give your own opinion. So how do you prepare for all that? I suggest using a template. What is a template? A template gives you sentence starters that include great vocabulary and that help you organize your response. If you memorize a template before you take the TOEFL, you don't have to think about how to start. You can simply start writing. That's awesome because the TOEFL is stressful. The clock is running. You don't have much time. You need the time you have to think about the arguments you want to use. You don't have time to think about how to start your sentences. A template solves this problem. It saves you time and it ensures that you use a large vocabulary, and this will boost your score. That's why I love using templates. You can find templates for all the TOEFL writing tasks in my TOEFL materials. Just click on the link in the description. Also, practice using linking words and phrases like therefore and however. Your ideas must flow logically from one to the next. The best way to show how ideas relate is through linking words. One other point to remember is that you should not try to show off with complex words or grammar that you don't know well. You will get a lower score if the mistakes make your writing hard to understand. Therefore, use grammar and vocabulary that you are comfortable with. I also want to mention that TOEFL integrated writing includes a lot of information. You only hear the lecture once, so be sure to take good notes. Guys, taking good notes is important. You will be given a lot of information and you must organize it quickly to be able to write a great answer. We will move on to TOEFL Speaking. The speaking section includes 4 questions. In the first one, you must give your opinion on a topic. For the others, you have to summarize information you read or hear. If you want a high score, you must stay on task and answer the question completely. Pay attention to what the question asks you to do. For example, when you're asked to summarize a topic, don't offer your own opinion. If you do that, you will get a lower score because that's not what you're supposed to do. One of the main problems students have in TOEFL Speaking is trying to say too much. You only have a short time to organize your response. My advice is the same as for TOEFL Writing. Use a template. You can find templates for all TOEFL Speaking tasks in my TOEFL materials. They include amazing sentence starters, linking words, and much more to help you boost your score quickly. Just click on the link in the description. Before the test, use the template many times so you become familiar with the different structures and vocabulary. Use a timer when you practice so you get used to the time limit for each response. Here's an important tip for during the test. Look forward. It's easy to look down when you're nervous, but your voice is clearer when you face forward. Make sure that your voice rises and falls naturally while you speak, because you don't want to sound like a robot. Plus, Don't worry about giving a really unusual answer. You're only scored on how well you present your idea, so it's okay if you take a common viewpoint. You don't have much time to prepare, so think of your main points and don't make the argument too complex. Just pick one stance and speak about it, even if you don't feel strongly. Let's go on with TOEFL Reading. This section has 2 academic passages with 10 questions each. That's a total of 20 questions. Make sure you get used to the different types of questions in TOEFL Reading. There are many different types, and you must have strategies for solving them. If you don't know what the question asks you to do, it's very hard to find the correct answer. But if you have seen such a question before, and know how to deal with it, you will find the correct answer really fast. In my TOEFL reading course, I show you strategies that help you find the correct answers fast for all types of questions. We also solve many practice tests together. Check it out, the link is in the description. A lot of students try to memorize long lists of vocabulary, but I don't think that's the best way to study. Vocabulary is, of course, very important. However, the TOEFL always uses unusual topics with words that are new, even to native speakers. The point is not to know all the words, but to figure out what the words mean from clues in the text. Therefore, you should practice by reading as much as possible. I try to read newspaper or magazine articles. That way, I can improve my concentration and reading skills. Sometimes I read with a dictionary and search for the meaning of words I don't know. Other times, I try to guess the meaning of the words from the context. Reading anything improves your ability to find clues to the definition in the text. Plus, if you actively try to understand the word, you will remember the new vocabulary better. When you take your TOEFL reading test, don't focus on reading slowly and trying to memorize details. You don't have time for that. Start with reading the question and then skim the passage to find the relevant information. When you have found it, read that part of the passage carefully and then answer the question. Remember, the answer is somewhere in the passage. But pay attention. Many of the incorrect answer choices include words from the text. The TOEFL do that on purpose. They want to check whether you simply match words or whether you actually understand what you're reading. Therefore, check the passage carefully to make sure that you select the correct answer. If a question is too hard, then don't waste time on it. Eliminate the answers you know are wrong and select one of the answers you are not sure about. There is no penalty for wrong answer. If you have time at the end of the test, you can go back and try to answer it. Finally, we will have a look at TOEFL Listening. The listening section has 28 questions, but there are different sections to listen to. Some are conversations and others are academic lectures. Just like with the reading section, get used to the test structure. Develop a strategy and use it when taking practice tests. There are several ways to practice listening. You will hear different British and American accents on the TOEFL test, so podcasts are a good way to get used to different voices. Try listening to academic topics or the news to practice hearing text with a variety of new words. It's important not to panic when you hear a new word. Just try to understand the basic idea of the whole text. Also, try listening to fun topics that you enjoy so you can gain confidence hearing different voices. Your vocabulary might not grow as much if it's a topic that you know well, but you will still get better at picking out details. Further, I have a tip for you guys. When you take the TOEFL listening test, turn the volume up higher than normal. This way, you will find it easier to understand the speakers, and you also won't miss any words. I always do that, and I find that I understand the conversations better this way. That's it! That's how to pass the TOEFL in 2024. I hope this video was helpful to you guys. If you have any questions or a video wish, comment below and I would love to see you here next time. Bye bye!